Wait, you're my father? Jaden's voice trembled with rage as the once powerful man collapsed in shame. Zariah froze. 24 years ago, he left her pregnant on the streets. Now he was back, starving, broken, begging. But this time, she held the power. Will she choose revenge or forgiveness? Don't scroll. This twist will leave you breathless. Subscribe and like to follow the full emotional journey. Zariah Green stood in the nursery folding tiny baby clothes, her hands moving slowly, gently. The room was calm, filled with lavender-scented air and soft yellow light. She had painted the walls herself, added little stars above the crib. Imagine the life she was about to bring into the world. Her belly, 7 months heavy, moved slightly, her son stretching within. And just as she smiled at the motion, she heard the front door open. She didn't even turn around. "You're home early," she said with a lightness in her voice. But Devin didn't respond the way he used to. His steps echoed coldly against the hardwood floor. She turned and saw his face, expressionless, distant. He stood in the doorway like a stranger, water dripping from his coat. "I want a divorce," he said. The words didn't register at first. Zariah laughed nervously, confused. "What?" Devin's tone didn't change. "I found someone else. Someone who understands the life I'm trying to build." She blinked. Her hands, once folding baby socks, now trembled. One tiny sock slipped from her fingers and dropped to the floor. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to leave tonight," he continued, as if he were just finalizing a business deal. "She's moving in this weekend." Zariah stepped back, heart pounding. "Devin, I'm carrying your child. You can't just..." "That child will be better off without the limitations your background will place on him," he cut her off, still refusing to meet her eyes. "Brielle is educated, sophisticated. Our children will have better chances with her influence." She stared at him, unable to speak. Her world tilted under her feet. He turned to walk away, his voice calm, almost bored. "I've already changed the lease. You need to be gone within the hour." She fell to her knees. Her hand clutched his pant leg, desperation thick in her voice. "Please, Devin, don't do this. I have nowhere to go. No one. You know I was raised in the system. I have nothing." "You'll figure it out," he muttered. "You always do." That night, Zariah stood alone on the wet sidewalk of downtown Atlanta. Her suitcase sat beside her. Rain soaked her hair and coat, and her breath misted in the cold. Cars sped past. No one looked twice. Her hands cradled her belly protectively, as if shielding her unborn child from the storm. She walked for miles, past bus stops and shuttered stores, past memories she had once thought would last a lifetime. Her feet blistered in soaked shoes, and still she walked, until she found shelter beneath an overhang in front of an abandoned laundromat. There, she curled up on the cold concrete, trembling, her back against graffiti-stained brick. She pressed her palms to her stomach and whispered through chattering teeth, "I will not let you suffer for his choices." As the sun rose over Atlanta, painting the city in dull gray and tired orange, Zariah was already on her feet again. She walked street to street, knocking on doors. Coffee shops, cleaning services, daycares. Each time, she was met with the same hesitation, the same look at her swollen belly. "Sorry, we're not hiring right now. She's too far along. We'll be sued if something happens." One by one, doors closed in her face, but she kept going. By late afternoon, hunger clawed at her, but she forced herself forward, wiping sweat from her brow and ignoring the pain in her feet. Near the edge of Old Fourth Ward, she passed a small fruit stand. An older woman stood behind it, arranging bananas and peaches into neat rows. Her eyes met Zariah's and narrowed. "Child," the woman said, "you look like you're about to drop." Zariah tried to straighten her back, force a polite smile. I'm looking for work." "When's the last time you ate?" the woman asked. Zariah hesitated, pride fighting her hunger. "I'm okay, ma'am." "Really?" The woman didn't wait for a second excuse. She reached over, grabbed a ripe banana, and pressed it into Zariah's hands. "Eat," she said gently. "Then we'll talk." Zariah devoured it. Her hands shook. She couldn't hide it anymore. The woman watched her, nodding slowly, then introduced herself. Name's Loretta. Everyone calls me Mama Loretta. I sell fruit here. I could use help if you're willing. Zariah's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. You'd hire me? Just like that? I see what the world don't, Mama Loretta said. You're a black woman carrying more than just a child. You're carrying fight, and fight always find a way. She handed Zariah a tray of fruit and pointed up Peachtree Street. Sell it by the post office. When you're done, bring my cut back. The rest is yours. Zariah looked down at the tray in her hands. Oranges, guavas, a chance. She looked up, the setting sun glowing behind the high-rises. And for the first time since Devin shut the door, she whispered back to her unborn son, "We're not done." Then she stepped into the crowd, ready to be seen, ready to survive. Zariah's first day selling fruit was nothing like she expected. She stood at the edge of downtown Atlanta, just outside the post office, balancing the wooden tray on her rounded belly. The oranges rolled every time she shifted her weight, and the guavas were already starting to bruise. Her voice was hoarse from calling out, her lips dry, but she forced herself to keep smiling. People walked past her like she was invisible. Some gave her quick, pitiful glances. Others looked through her completely. It wasn't just that she was hawking fruit. It was that she was pregnant, visibly struggling, and undeniably a black woman trying to survive in a city that didn't slow down for anyone. Around lunchtime, a security guard told her to move along. She walked half a block, then set up again near a row of law offices. That's where she sold her first banana, to a receptionist who paid in change and didn't say a word. It felt like gold in her palm. Her back throbbed. Her ankles were swollen and sore, but she stayed out until the sky turned pale and the streets started to empty. When she returned to Mama Loretta's fruit stand that evening, she handed over a folded paper towel with small bills and coins tucked inside. Mama didn't count it. She just raised her eyebrows and asked, "You eat today?" Zariah shook her head, lips pressed tight. Without another word, Mama pulled a small meat pie wrapped in foil from her bag and handed it to her. Zariah took it, hands trembling. "Thank you," she murmured. Mama Loretta gave her a long, quiet look, then asked, "Where you sleeping, baby?" Zariah hesitated. "A laundromat. Abandoned one off Glenwood. It's dry. Nobody bothers me." Mama shook her head and sighed. "That ain't a place to be birthing no child. Come on now." She dug into her apron and pulled out a worn silver key. "I clean part-time at a thrift store behind the church. Got a little room in back with a cot. It's not much, but it's better than rats and ghosts." Zariah stared at the key, like it might vanish if she blinked. "Why would you do that for me?" she asked, voice shaking. Mama Loretta smiled, eyes soft with memory. "Because 30 years ago I was you, pregnant, broke, and forgotten. Nobody helped me. That kind of pain don't leave you. If I can stop it from happening again, even once, I will." That night, Zariah slept in a tiny room behind the thrift store, curled under a patchwork blanket that smelled faintly of cedar and bleach. It was the first time she'd felt safe in weeks. She didn't dream, just slept, heavy and deep. The next morning, before the city stirred, she was already on her feet, tray in hand, determined. The routine became her rhythm. Early mornings with Mama sweeping floors and scrubbing shelves, then long days pounding the pavement. She worked every corner near the office buildings, courtrooms, and bus stations. She learned where to stand to catch the rush hour, where the security guards looked the other way, and how to talk fast enough to make a sale before someone changed their mind. Her belly grew. Her hunger burned. She sold fruit in the heat, in the rain, with a hand on her side and a prayer in her throat. Some days she earned $5. Other days, maybe 10. She hid the cash in an old Bible Mama Loretta had given her. "You'll need it," Mama said. "Save it for when things really go wrong. 'Cause they always do." Zariah didn't argue. She just nodded. They ate dinner together most nights. Rice and beans, fried plantains, sometimes leftovers from a bodega across the street. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm, familiar, safe. On Saturdays, Zariah helped Mama prepare extra fruit trays for the church crowd. On Sundays, she rested. Barely. She scrubbed the little room, polished her shoes, and rewrote her sales pitch in her head. Every second was about survival, but survival had a price. One afternoon, late in her 8th month, she nearly fainted on Peachtree Street. The sun was high and brutal. Her breath caught in her chest, and the tray slipped from her grip, fruit scattering across the sidewalk. A crowd gathered, but no one helped, until one hand reached down, steady, rough, familiar. Mama Loretta had followed her that day. "I told you," she said, helping Zariah to her feet. "You don't gotta prove everything in one day." Zariah looked at her through tears. "If I stop, even for a second, I'll break." Mama's voice softened. "Then lean, baby, just long enough to breathe." That night, Zariah lay awake, staring at the ceiling of the thrift store room. The baby kicked, steady and strong. She whispered, "You hear me, little one? We're still here. And as long as I can walk, I will keep walking for you." She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know if the money she had saved would last. But she knew this. She had survived another day. And for now, that was enough. Zariah went into labor on a cold, rainy Tuesday night. The city was quiet, almost cruel in its silence, as thunder rolled somewhere far in the distance. She had just returned from selling fruit downtown, soaked to the skin, her ankles swollen, her back tight with pain. She hadn't said anything when she walked through the door of the thrift store's back room, just dropped the tray, kicked off her shoes, and leaned against the wall. Then the first contraction hit. It started like a cramp, low and dull. Then came another, sharper, then the pressure. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't scream. She didn't panic. She just whispered one word through gritted teeth. "Mama." Within minutes, Mama Loretta was at her side, kneeling on the floor, her hands already moving with a practiced calm. She didn't ask questions. She didn't hesitate. She just got to work. Boiling water on a portable stove, ripping clean sheets into strips, rolling up towels. The tiny room glowed dimly in the soft flicker of a candle, and as the contractions came faster, harder, Zariah gripped the edge of the mattress and pushed. "You're doing fine, baby," Mama said softly. "You're stronger than this pain. You hear me? You're stronger than him, than the streets, than all of it." Zariah's body arched, her hands clenched, sweat running down her temples. With one final cry, half anguish, half power, she brought her son into the world. The baby let out a strong, full scream, and Mama Loretta caught him, wrapped him in a worn cotton towel, and placed him gently on Zariah's chest. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The candle flickered against the walls, casting long shadows. Zariah stared at her son's face, eyes shut tight, mouth trembling, tiny fists curled into strength. "What's his name?" Mama whispered. Zariah's voice cracked. "Jaden," she said, holding him close. "Jaden Green." Then her voice dropped even softer, reverent. "He who will do great things." That night, Zariah didn't sleep. She sat up with her baby in her arms, watching the light dance across his skin. She thought about Devin, his betrayal, his voice saying she didn't belong, that her child didn't deserve his name. She thought about the night she was thrown out with nothing but a suitcase and a belly full of hope. And now she had this tiny, perfect human. She pressed her lips to his forehead and made a promise, one born not of bitterness but of fire. "You will never feel discarded. You will never feel forgotten. I will build a world for you, even if I have to do it with nothing but my bare hands." The next morning, Zariah was back on her feet. 6 weeks later, she returned to work. She left Jaden in Mama Loretta's care during the day and hustled across the city with her tray. Now heavier but more purposeful than ever, she sold fruit to lawyers, janitors, office clerks, anyone who would stop long enough to listen. In the evenings, she came home to rock her baby to sleep, whispering lullabies she'd made up while walking long streets alone. When Jaden turned 3 months old, she started strapping him to her back with a cloth wrap and brought him along. His giggles and coos followed her like a song as she pitched mangoes to tourists and oranges to tired nurses on a night shift. He became her rhythm, her breath, her reason, By the time Jaden was 1, he had learned to hold a banana and wave it at strangers. Customers came back not just for fruit, but to see the smiling baby boy whose mother never quit. But nothing in life stayed quiet for long. One night, Jaden developed a fever. It was mild at first. Zariah thought it was teething. She gave him a sponge bath, whispered prayers into his hair. But the next morning, he didn't wake with his usual laughter. He whimpered, eyes glassy, body hot. Then came the seizure. Zariah screamed. Mama Loretta rushed in. They wrapped him in blankets, called a cab, and raced to Grady Memorial Hospital. Time blurred. Bright lights. Sharp voices. Doctors moving quickly. Machines beeping like alarms in a nightmare. When the doctor returned, his face was somber. "It's meningitis," he said. "He needs antibiotics immediately, possibly surgery. You'll need to cover the cost. 150,000 naira minimum." Zariah's body went cold. She had saved 75,000 over the past year, money she tucked away for his education. It wasn't enough. She fell to her knees in the hallway, sobbing into her hands, her voice hoarse from crying his name. Then a hand touched her shoulder. "Mama Loretta, take mine," she said simply. "All of it. That boy is my grandson, too." Together, they paid the hospital bill. Barely. The treatment began. Jaden stayed in the ICU for 4 days. Zariah never left his side. She slept sitting up, her head resting against a metal bed rail, her fingers wrapped around his tiny hand. He recovered, slowly, but he recovered, and something inside Zariah changed forever. That night, sitting beside his hospital bed, she looked down at his sleeping face and said aloud, "Never again will I let life take from me what I have not offered freely. Never again will I beg. I will build something no one can tear down." The next morning, with Jaden swaddled against her chest, she stepped out into the rising sun of Atlanta with the fire of a mother who had nothing left to lose and everything left to fight for. Jaden was just beginning to walk when Zariah made her first real business deal. It happened on a blistering afternoon, the kind where Atlanta heat pressed against your skin like wet cloth and the sidewalk shimmered under the weight of summer. She had been selling fruit near a construction site on Howell Mill Road, the same place she passed every Tuesday on her way to a nearby office complex. That day, she overheard 2 workers complaining loudly about their lunch. Cold, bland food from the usual vendors. Zariah hesitated for a moment, heart pounding. Then she stepped forward, baby strapped to her back, tray nearly empty. "What if I cook for you instead?" she asked. "Something hot, fresh, real food." The site supervisor, a stocky man in a faded hard hat and a name tag that read Bramwell, looked at her sideways. "You cook too?" "I cook like someone who had to make beans stretch for 3 days," she said. "Chin high? Give me 1 shot. If they don't love it, you don't owe me $1. Bramwell shrugged. "You show up tomorrow. Early. 7 sharp." That night, Zariah didn't sleep. She used every coin she had left to buy rice, chicken, spices, and foil containers. Mama Loretta helped her prep, cutting onions with tears in her eyes that had nothing to do with the sting. They worked into the night, filling her borrowed kitchen with the smell of jollof rice and grilled plantains. By dawn, Zariah was ready. She loaded everything into a cart, strapped Jaden to her back, and made her way to the site. By noon, every plate was empty. Workers licked their fingers, asked for seconds. And Bramwell? He gave her a nod. "Come back tomorrow." Word spread fast. Within 2 months, Zariah was supplying lunch to 3 construction sites. She hired 2 women from the shelter she used to stay in, single mothers like her, tough and tired and willing. She rented a small kitchen behind a church, painted the door herself, called it Golden Hustle Catering. The name was Mama Loretta's idea. "You're golden," she said. "Even when they threw dirt on you, you rose." Zariah laughed, but in her heart, it felt true. Money wasn't easy, but it started coming in, slowly. Jaden grew stronger, brighter. He started walking beside her, helping her carry small bags, counting coins in her apron. By the time he was 5, he could take an order with perfect manners and double-check the change. Customers adored him. "Your boy's got a good head on his shoulders," They'd say, "He's got a good mother," Mama Loretta would reply. Zariah gave back when she could. She fed the kids who hung around the corner with empty pockets and hungry eyes. She handed out extra rice to the janitors who worked the late shifts, never expecting thanks. One day, Jaden asked her, "Mama, why do you feed people who don't pay?" She looked at him and smiled. "Because we were them. And because if I ever forget what it's like to be hungry, I'll forget how to be human." She never spoke badly of Devin. When Jaden was old enough to ask, she simply said, "He made choices. You'll make better ones." And he did. He studied hard, stayed kind. His teacher said he was focused, respectful, always the first to help. Zariah watched him grow, her pride swelling with every test score and every thank you note from school. By the time Jaden turned 12, he was offered a full scholarship to one of the best private schools in Atlanta. The day they received the letter, Zariah cried like she hadn't cried in years. Not because it was unexpected, but because she knew what it cost to get there. The night she slept sitting up, the morning she sold fruit in the rain, the days she cooked until her arms went numb. At night, she watched Jaden sleep and whisper, "You were never supposed to survive this world, but you're about to conquer it." Meanwhile, Golden Hustle grew. Zariah added weekend brunches, then hired a delivery driver. She applied for a small business grant and got it. With the money, she leased a storefront on Auburn Avenue and opened her first real restaurant. She called it Golden Pot. It wasn't just a restaurant. It was a statement. The place became a staple in the neighborhood, not for fancy dishes or trendy plating, but for food that tasted like home and stories that tasted like hope. The walls were lined with photos of smiling customers, handwritten notes of thanks, and pictures of Zariah and Jaden from when they had nothing but a tray and a sidewalk. Mama Loretta sat near the window most afternoons, greeting regulars, telling stories to anyone who would listen. She wore a golden pot apron like a badge of honor and introduced herself as a spiritual CEO. Jaden, now a high school senior, worked weekends at the register. He had grown into a quiet leader, sharp eyes, steady hands, and the kind of presence that made people listen when he spoke. On his graduation day, he walked across the stage in a navy blue robe, head high, smile wide. After the ceremony, he found Zariah in the crowd, held up his diploma, and said, "Mama, everything I am, I owe to you." Zariah hugged him so tightly she thought her chest might burst. "You were never missing anything," she whispered. "You had love, and that's everything." They went home that night to their house in Westview, a place with hardwood floors and walls painted sunshine yellow. Mama Loretta cooked dinner. Jaden told stories. And Zariah sat at the table she bought with her first catering check, surrounded by the family she built from nothing. She didn't know it yet, but the past was about to knock on her door. And this time, it would be begging to be let back in. Devin Clark was 51 when he walked out of prison, but he looked 70. His back hunched from years of confinement. His once confident stride had been replaced by a slow, dragging shuffle. The designer suits were long gone, replaced with threadbare jeans and a wrinkled button-up 2 sizes too big. His name was no longer spoken in conference rooms or printed in bank newsletters. Now, it was whispered by guards and caseworkers. Another fallen man, another selfish husband turned cautionary tale. The headlines had come and gone years ago. Bank executive arrested in embezzlement scheme linked to oil heiress. People stopped reading once they got to the part where his secretary turned wife, Brielle, fled the country with the rest of the stolen money. Devin had been left holding the blame and the sentence. 8 years. 8 long years to think. He thought about the power he used to hold, the fake smiles of his boardroom allies, and how none of them had written a single letter since the day he was sentenced. But more than anything, he thought about Zariah. He thought about the way she used to fold his shirts, the way she left the porch light on no matter how late he came home. He thought about the warmth in her voice, the way her laughter filled the apartment in the early days. He thought about the child he'd never met, the child he'd thrown away before he was even born. And now, there was no job waiting, no house to return to, no one to call. He drifted through shelters, slept behind dumpsters, begged for change near gas stations where he used to fuel up his BMW. Atlanta moved around him like he didn't exist. The very city he once claimed was his playground now wouldn't even look him in the eye. One Thursday afternoon, blistering hot and heavy with the smell of car exhaust and fried food, Devin sat on the sidewalk near Peachtree and Auburn. His back rested against the building wall, his knees drawn up to his chest. His hands trembled as he held a cardboard sign. It didn't say much. Just, anything helps. Thank you. People passed him like he was part of the pavement. And then he heard a voice. Sir, are you hungry? He looked up. A young man stood in front of him. Early 20s. Sharp jawline. Clean shirt. Tie loosened for what looked like a long day at the office. There was kindness in his eyes. But more than that, there was familiarity. Devin's heart stuttered. I could buy you something. There's a restaurant down the street, the young man offered, already gesturing for Devin to follow. Devin nodded, stunned. His legs felt weak as he stood, but he followed the stranger. They turned the corner, and suddenly the smell of warm spices and grilled meat hit Devin in the face. The sign above the door read, Golden Pot. The young man held the door open. Devin stepped inside and froze. Behind the register, a woman looked up, and the world stopped. Zariah Green stood there, older but powerful. Her hair was pulled back in a soft crown braid. Her apron said, Owner. Her hands were steady, but her eyes widened as they locked with his. He heard her whisper his name. Devin. The young man turned, confused. Wait, what did you say? Zariah's lips parted. Her hand came to her chest. She didn't answer. Devin took a step forward, his voice breaking like glass. Zariah, is he? The young man's face changed. The polite concern melted. His jaw clenched. His eyes filled with recognition and fury. You're my father? Devin's knees buckled, but Jaden didn't move to catch him. Don't you ever call me your son, Jaden said, voice cold. You left my mother pregnant. Alone, on the street. You threw us away. Devin tried to speak, but nothing came out. I didn't know. I was wrong. You were a coward, Jaden snapped, and you don't get to rewrite it now. Then he turned to Zariah. I'm sorry, Mama. I can't be here with him. He walked out. Zariah stood behind the counter, her chest tight with 30 years of heartbreak. She didn't move. Devin sank into a chair, silent, ashamed. A few minutes passed. Then she brought him a plate. Fried plantains, jollof rice, stew. She placed it in front of him without a word. Devin stared at the food, then at her. I'm sorry, he whispered. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted to say it. I see now what I lost, what I gave up, what I destroyed. Zariah sat across from him, folding her hands. I forgave you a long time ago, Devin, she said calm. Not for you. For me, hate is heavy. I couldn't carry it and raise a child at the same time. Devin's eyes filled with tears. He's incredible, he whispered. He's not just incredible, Zariah said. He's mine. And everything he is because I fought for him, because I refused to let your absence define him. That night, after closing, Jaden came home angry. He paced in the living room, hands clenched. Zariah sat him down. Mama Loretta watched quietly from the kitchen. Son, Zariah said, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But don't let his mistakes poison the joy we built. I'm not giving him a pass, Jaden said. You don't have to, Mama Loretta cut in. But forgiveness ain't a gift for the other person. It's freedom for you. Jaden didn't answer. He went to bed in silence. But for 3 nights, he couldn't sleep. And on the 4th day, he did something he never thought he would. He went looking for Devin. He found him in the same spot. Same wall. Same look in his eyes. Jaden stood over him, arms crossed. I'm not here to play catch-up, he said. You can't be my father. That ship sailed. Devin didn't speak. But I'm not going to let your choices follow me for the rest of my life. So here's what I can give you. He handed Devin a card. A rehab program for ex-inmates. Job training. Housing support. You want to be better? Jaden said, start here. Not with words. With work. Then he walked away. And for the first time in years, Devin Clark had something real in his hands. A second chance. 5 years passed. Golden Pot was now more than a restaurant. It was a landmark, a place whispered about in city council chambers and written up in local magazines. People came not just for the food, but for the feeling, the warmth, the quiet pride that lived in its walls. Zariah had opened 2 more locations. Her face had been featured in a Women Who Changed Atlanta article, but she never let any of it change her rhythm. She still showed up before sunrise, still checked every pot herself, still wiped down counters with the same care she once gave the tray of fruit that started it all. Jaden was 24 now, a full-time consultant for an engineering firm downtown. Sharp, respected, kind. He owned suits tailored to his broad shoulders and a quiet confidence inherited not by blood, but by resilience. He had married a brilliant woman named Adai, someone who matched his energy, who had her own fire, and together they had 2 little ones who raced around the house like joy in motion. Sunday nights were sacred. It was the only day no one worked, the only day the restaurant closed early. The family gathered at the original location on Auburn Avenue, where the tables had been pushed together into one long stretch of wood and laughter. Mama Loretta, now in her 80s, still sat in her favorite spot by the window, wrapped in a shawl she claimed had weathered 3 generations of foolishness. She still told stories, still laughed louder than anyone else, still gave Jaden side eyes every time he didn't finish his greens. That evening, the table was full. Zariah at one end, Jaden and Adai on one side, their children between them, Mama Loretta on the other, rocking slowly in her seat. The food was abundant. Steaming jollof, fried plantain crisp on the edges, a goosey stew in warm bowls passed from hand to hand. The room smelled like everything home should smell like: spice, care, survival. But one seat at the far end of the table remained empty. Devin had finished the rehab program 2 years earlier, found steady work as a night security guard at a warehouse just outside the city. He rented a small 1-room apartment, lived quiet, never asked for anything. Every month, he mailed a simple letter to Jaden, no emotion, just short updates. I'm still working. I'm trying. I'm proud of you. Sometimes Jaden read them. Sometimes he didn't, but he kept them all. That night, after the dishes were cleared and the kids put to bed, Zariah sat beside her son on the porch of the restaurant. The city buzzed in the distance, horns, jazz spilling out of a nearby bar, footsteps on pavement. Jaden leaned back in his chair, watching the sky darken. He wrote again. He said finally. Zariah nodded. I figured. He said he's been clean for 5 years, volunteering at the shelter now. That's good. Jaden was quiet for a long time. Then softly, he'll never be my father. Zariah looked at him. He doesn't need to be. You became the man you are without him. I still feel it though, he admitted. Like there's this piece of me I didn't get to know. She reached over, squeezed his hand. That piece doesn't define you. It never did. You were never missing anything important. Not with Mama Loretta. Not with me. Not with what we built. Jaden looked at her, eyes full of something more complex than anger. Something heavier, older, wiser. I know. Zariah smiled. Some wounds don't close with apologies. They heal with time. With legacy. He leaned his head on her shoulder. Inside, Mama Loretta laughed loudly, probably at something she said 5 times already. The sound carried out onto the porch like music. Jaden sat up and said, Mama, thank you. For what? For showing me that where we come from doesn't limit where we're going. For building this with nothing but grit. For loving me like that was enough. She looked at him, her heart full. It was always enough. He pulled something from his back pocket, a folded note. Devin's handwriting. I think I'll write back this time. Zariah didn't say anything, just nodded. The kind of nod only a mother gives when her child doesn't need permission, only support. Behind them, the restaurant glowed golden in the night. Inside those walls lived the memory of struggle, the noise of hope, and the quiet triumph of a black woman who'd been thrown away and decided to rise. Outside, the city moved on, fast and unforgiving. But inside the golden pot, At the table they built together from dust and determination, love was still being served. And that, Zariah knew, was the only legacy that mattered. If this story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe so you never miss a single chapter of courage, love, and redemption. More powerful stories are on the way. True to life, raw with emotion, and impossible to ignore. Let's build a community that believes in second chances. See you in the next episode.